Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Wednesday. We just have a little bit of the film V for Vendetta to watch. We just need to watch the conclusion. It's only about 10 minutes. We'll watch it. We'll talk about, I think, three questions that we have outstanding from that thing. And then I'd like to try and talk about, and I'm not sure how to do this, but I'd like to try and talk about some of the sort of themes of the movie, what we can learn, and how we can kind of talk about what's going on in sort of modern modern life and sort of current events based on what we've seen in the movie. Okay, I don't know how that's going to go. I need you to help me because I'm not quite sure how to move forward with it, but we'll do our best. Okay, so um, if you're online, again, it's the movie's available in the library in um, under Find Materials, Streaming Videos, um, Criterion on Demand, and then you'll search for V for Vendetta. Here in class, we're going to watch the last 10 minutes or so, and then we'll come back and talk about the questions. Okay, so online people, we'll see you in just a few minutes, and we'll watch the rest of it in here. So much to talk about. Let's get rid of this. Oops, get rid of this. Go to here. Okay. So yesterday we reviewed the answer to question 5, right? Because I wanted to, this is part of the whole kind of underlying plot of the film, right? And what was the answer to that? What was the story of that virus? Where did it come from and what happened with it?
The government.
Right. Yeah. And specifically the leader of the party, right, who was the Secretary of Defense. So why did they create this virus?
So that they could make medicines after that and be like the other one that saved everybody.
Yeah. It was a biological weapons program meant to protect the British public from biological attacks, right? From virus attacks. But as we said yesterday, suddenly they realized that they had a horrible disease that they'd created and they had a cure for it, right? And so the idea comes about to actually release it into the public as a way to create fear, right? And to create chaos. And in the process, what do they manage to do?
What?
That party or that secretary, Adam Sutler.
They won.
Kind of. Yeah, they managed to gain power, right? And again, well, I won't say that. So they managed to gain power. They managed to actually form the government. And then of course, it very quickly evolves or devolves into an authoritarian or a totalitarian or a dictatorship, right? With Adam Sutler at the top and everyone else kind of on the bottom, right? And again, it comes out of that fear and chaos that the virus created, right? And we saw, not today, but the last couple times we've seen the movie, we saw clips of that, right, from the past where things were chaotic and there was protests and violence and all kinds of things, right, as people were scared about the virus and were kind of fighting with each other. So these are the questions that I want to talk about now, right? And so this is the part where hopefully we have watched this movie and we come out the other side and maybe it's teaching us something, or maybe it's not, or maybe, I don't know. Take 30 seconds. I'm going to open the blinds here. Take 30 seconds and think about question 6, okay? So the idea of what a terrorist is, because we often think of terrorists as bad people, right? So I want you to think about the idea of a terrorist and how should we think of V in this movie? How should we view his desire to overthrow the government? How should we think about the way in which he goes about doing it? How should we feel about people in real life who might have similar ideas? Let's start with this one. I'm going to put my feet up because I'm going to be comfortable. What do you think? How can we define a terrorist? What is a terrorist? Someone who causes damage to a mass of people or to a group of people. Okay, good. That is part of it. What else is part of it, David? Do you think? What's a terrorist? Okay. Did you say they enrich themselves?
Yeah.
Okay. Because of their views or beliefs?
Yeah.
Okay. So, sometimes that's very true, yeah. Regina, what would you say?
I think someone
Mm-hmm.
Also, some of the crimes, it's also because of their beliefs and values.
Okay. So again, they cause a lot of damage to the people or to the country because of the things that they believe. Is that something like that? Okay. And Abby, what do you think? Can you add to that?
People who kill other people to share their beliefs or to show their power.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. That's not bad. We're pretty close. We're pretty close. And Avi, I think you might be the closest, but we're all in the ballpark. And yeah, the idea is that the terrorist is someone who creates fear, right? And often, sometimes it's through, creating damage to physical objects or to society. Sometimes it's through killing people or intimidating people. But they use that fear, they use that terror in order to accomplish some kind of political goal, right? And like you said, because of their beliefs or their values, right? They're trying to get something to happen, right? And so if you're just a crazy person who walks into a shopping mall and starts shooting people, that's not terrorism, right? That's a mass shooting. It's violence and it's awful, but it's not terrorism, right? You have to be trying to accomplish some sort of political goal, right, for it to be terrorism, or at least that's probably what a political scientist would tell you. So, is V a terrorist?
No.
No? Yes? Yes? No? Why do you say yes? Good morning. Why do you say yes? Say that one more time. Right. So he was doing violent things, right? He was blowing up buildings and killing people. And what was his goal? Yeah. Yeah, right. He disapproved of the government, and I think he wanted them out, right? He wanted that government out. So that kind of fits the definition of a terrorist, right? But Avi, you were saying no, he's not. What made you think that he wasn't?
Because he wasn't killing random innocent.
Okay. So the people that were killed were not random. They were not innocent.
Yeah.
They were not, right? They were, or were they?
I mean, is the first one after he met Yuji in the television station or something?
Oh yeah.
He's doing actually,
Yeah, I guess he kind of endangered their lives at the television station. I kind of don't think that bomb was real. Remember when
oh yeah.
there was that bomb and they defused it? I don't think it was real.
But like his doing actually, I think one of them will shoot.
Oh, that's possible, right? Some people were probably injured or killed, and they were probably just innocent people, right?
A few.
A few.
Yeah.
Collateral damage, right? For the most part, his violence was very targeted, right? There were people who were responsible for the creation of the virus and for testing the virus and the vaccine on him and on others, right? And so he targeted all those people later on and then killed them all one by one. So you're making a distinction between, yes, he killed people, but they were all bad people, right? Mostly.
Like if at this time, if you're in jail, they'll probably be killed anyway.
You think they would have been killed anyway?
Yeah, like
By whom?
death row.
Death row?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but they weren't criminals, right? They were all living their lives. Some of them had very cushy positions in government or on television.
Yeah, but they were still bad.
They are still bad.
But we just gave them what they deserved.
He did, right? And that's part of what makes him a vigilante, right? He's someone who is working outside of the law, right? He's not law enforcement, he's not police, and he's kind of punishing people as he sees fit. Well, yeah, anti-heroes are often vigilantes, right? Because they're outside of the law. Sometimes they're breaking the law, but they're being framed as delivering justice, right? Batman is the classic anti-hero vigilante. Or a hero. Yeah. I guess depending on the version. Yeah, some of them are. Sometimes it seems like that new Batman with Robert Pattinson that's coming out. That one seems pretty gritty and tough, right? But Batman is a vigilante, right? He's not law enforcement. He's not police, but he goes out there and catches or punishes bad people, right? And what? Yeah, probably doesn't. Probably doesn't come complete with his service, right? Yeah, so this is kind of interesting, right? Because would you say that this story has framed him as a hero? Is he the hero of this story? Are we supposed to cheer for him? I think so, right? He's kind of a superhero-y kind of character. Pretty cool, right? Very sophisticated accent, and he's got a mysterious disguise, and we don't know who he is. And he certainly took care of those guys with guns pretty quickly, right? So we're kind of supposed to see him as a hero, and yet, David, you just told me he was a terrorist. So are terrorists heroes? It depends on the perspective of the people. Okay, so it depends on whether you agree with the terrorists' ideas. If you agree with someone's ideas, they're not a terrorist. Maybe they're a freedom fighter or a rebel. But if you don't agree with them, they're a terrorist. Interesting. It almost seems like this is setting up a critical thinking question, although it's not at the moment. But it almost is a critical thinking question because the difference here is that both of these, let's say the freedom fighter or the rebel, both the freedom fighter or the rebel, they are using violence to advance their cause. And the terrorist is doing the same thing. The only difference is the ideas, right? Whose ideas do you agree with, right? And again, I said we should be very careful about the ideas that we believe. And so here, what are V's ideas? What is he fighting for? Justice? Define justice. In here.
Just for them to admit what they did.
Okay. So he sees a crime has been committed, right? Against him, against hundreds or thousands of others, against the country itself maybe, and he wants justice for that crime, right? Probably true. What else do you think his values or beliefs are? He keeps talking about that. That's almost the last thing he says in the movie, right? Creedy says, "Why won't you die?" And he says, "Because behind this mask is an idea, and ideas are bulletproof." What's the idea?
People stand up fighting for themselves.
People.
Stand up and fight for themselves.
He's certainly encouraging people to do that, right? That's why they all show up at Parliament, right? Because he's a year ago, when he hijacked the television station, he said, people, if you feel the way I feel, join me on November 5th at Parliament, right? So yeah, he's encouraging people to stand up for themselves. 100% he is. But what's the idea? What's he fighting for? Justice, yes. Something else too. Yeah, he's looking for a revolution to happen. He's looking for an overthrow of the government, probably. Yeah. Would it be too much? Would it be too much to say that he's fighting for freedom? Freedom for the people? Is that too much to say, or is that reasonable? Okay. So, and that seems like a pretty valid thing to fight for, doesn't it? I think so, right? I think that's part of what makes him a hero in this story, right? Yes, he's kind of cool, you have to admit, but really what makes him the hero is what he's fighting for. He's using the methods of a terrorist, which is not good, but his ideas are good, right? He's fighting for justice. He's fighting for freedom. He's fighting to restore democracy, right? Because Britain has lost its democracy here in this film, and he's fighting to get it back, right? Wow, that was a loud sneeze. Does that sound kind of reasonable to you? Do you agree with that idea, that that's what's happening in this film, more or less? Okay. Well, I'll come back to this question, but what I want to talk about now has to do with this. And so, if you were paying attention to the news over the past few weeks, you know what's going on here, right? And some of you were even in the city while it was happening, which is kind of interesting. Hey, you were there for this is a major historical event, my friend. You might be a primary source one day. This happened, right? And so about probably close to 4 weeks ago, we had a bunch of people show up in Ottawa. They went to the Parliament building, kind of just like they did in V for Vendetta, and they all kind of parked their trucks there and started to create a protest, right? And that word freedom is all over the place, right? I see it in at least 3 places. There's some other slogans here that sound very inspiring as well, right? Mandate freedom, courage is contagious, victory over fear. Mandate freedom, freedom for all, that sounds good. Freedom pour les enfants. Yeah, it's like freedom for the children, damn it. That's I think that's what that says. Anyone speak French here? No? I think that's what that says. Maybe even a bit of justice there. Trudeau for treason. So I think there's a little bit of overlap here between what we saw in the movie and what we're seeing here in real life. We see a bunch of people showing up at the Parliament demanding freedom, right? And in a way, these people kind of held the city of Ottawa hostage for about 3 weeks, right? They had their trucks parked in the middle of the town. Nobody could kind of get in. There was lots of horn honking, which the people who lived downtown were suffering through because there was horns outside of their house all day long. It was kind of a big deal, right? But how should we think about these people? Are they the heroes of this story? Because they certainly were the heroes of V's story, right? And that was kind of the last thing, right? Is that, the police detective Finch says, who was he? And Evie says he was everybody, right? He was you, he was me, he was my father, he was my mother. He was everybody, right? He is a symbol of the people. But are these individuals the symbol of the people as well. Right? So, what I'd like to do is I'd like to take a little break. I would like to come back, and then I'll show you a short video that was taken by, I think, Vice News maybe a week or so ago. And so it talks to some of the people who were there. They've all been cleared out of there now. But talks to some of the people who were there, and they'll explain their ideas, right? So we know what V's ideas were, right? We know what he was fighting for. We know the things he was trying to do. But we're going to hear from these people. We're going to hear what they're trying to do, okay? And then we'll try and talk about that. Julio? Okay, let's take a break, and then when we come back, we'll watch that. All right. So, as we were speaking about before the break, here we have a bunch of people marching on Parliament with kind of seemingly some of the same ideas that our good friend V had, right? And of course, in the movie, V was definitely framed as the hero, and I think the people were as well, right? At the end of the movie, that was a triumphant thing that the people did, right? There was fireworks, you know, it was, they were all taking off their masks, right? They were like, oh, we did it, right? We've restored freedom, I think. I think that's what that meant, right? Would you say? Hello? Would you say? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. So, but let's have a look at these people here, okay? So, this is kind of the, oops, this is kind of the preamble for the video. I just got to grab the link here from my lecture keynotes. This is kind of the preamble for the video, and it's this. It's this. Copy. Okay. Preamble for the video is this. So, again, over the last 3 weeks, this is kind of ending now, but hundreds of semi-trucks and thousands of protesters filled the streets in front of Canada's Parliament in Ottawa. Participants of the Freedom Convoy say that they're there to protest vaccine mandates and other COVID restrictions in Canada, but as the protests have drawn on, they've been fueled by extreme rhetoric and misinformation. We went to Ottawa to meet with attendees to find out what's driving the occupation. So again, we're going to find out what the ideas were. We know that V was interested in freedom and maybe democracy and justice, but what are these people interested in? Okay, so for those of you who are online, the link is right there in the live chat, so you can watch it. We'll watch the video, and when we come back, we'll be answering these questions or talking about these questions. Number one, what seems to be the purpose of these protests? Why are these people, what are they there for? What are they trying to do? Right? Are these people similar to the British people in the film? Right? All the people that marched on Parliament at the end of V for Vendetta, are these people comparable or not? And do you think this is a legitimate cause? Right? I think that in V for Vendetta, we probably felt that freedom and justice was a legitimate cause to protest for, but do we agree with what these people are doing? Are they terrorists? Are they not? How should we see them? Okay? Cool? Oh, cool. All right. Let's watch this, and online people, you can watch it, and then we'll come back and talk, okay? help me out here, guys. What's the purpose of these protests? Why are all those people there, or were those people there? What are they saying?
For freedom.
Okay, so they're one of their beliefs apparently is freedom, right? What else are they there for?
Stop the vaccine mandate.
To stop the
Vaccine mandate. Like
So-
a vaccine passport or things.
Oh yeah. Yeah, right. The vaccine mandates, the vaccine passports and restrictions, they want all that to be over. Don't we all? But anyway. What else are they there for? Other things they talk about. Especially that one guy. What were his concerns?
Social credit system.
Right? What does that mean?
Government tracking, I think, moved the words they said they did, and to isolate the people instead having bad credit, which means like not following the government rules, and punish them.
Yeah, it's some sort of system to track people, what they do, what they say, and sort of give them opportunities if they support the government, and somehow deny them opportunities if they don't, or if they speak out against the government. That sounds pretty dystopian, but still. What else are they saying? Anna, what else did you hear?
Basically, the anti-vaccine thing, like they're just conspiracy theories.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, well, I do believe that, but I don't really know what it means.
Right. Right. What did you think of that, or how did you feel about that?
So now I can believe those things.
You what?
I don't believe in those things.
Yeah.
I'm vaccinated and now I am more calm.
Yeah.
Surrender that people.
Yeah.
I know, like, it's less probable that I'm going to get COVID.
Yeah, right. There's a very different belief around what vaccines are, right? Or I think people who are vaccinated, most of them feel like that's protection, right? And if the people around you are vaccinated, that's even more protection, right? But these people feel like somehow the vaccine makes them less protected, or that the vaccine will do something, right? Either now or in 5 years or whatever it is. So yeah, they have some different feelings about that. And there was also kind of this idea of a globalist agenda, right? The idea that somehow, Canada would kind of lose its right to make its own decisions, and it would be, taken over by some sort of world government of some kind, right? And that's kind of a conspiracy theory too, right? We haven't talked about conspiracy theories in this class, have we? No? What would you say a conspiracy theory is?
Hitler's after movie.
Yeah.
We have talked about this in class.
Have we?
Yeah, just a joke though.
Yeah, Hitler on the dark side of the moon, right? A conspiracy theory. There's a few of them out there, but conspiracy theories are usually, what they are is they're kind of usually a theory or an idea about how the world works, and they're usually based around the kind of idea that someone is controlling things from behind the scenes, okay? We don't know who they are, or maybe we do, but it's all very secretive. There's no evidence, of course, because these people are very careful, and they'd never be able to get away with the things that they do if there was any evidence. But somehow, people are secretly controlling things behind the scenes, right? And of course, Hitler used one of those in Nazi Germany, right? He said that the Jewish people, or the Bolsheviks, or Jewish Bolshevism was behind the world order, and they were conspiring against Germany, right? But there's all kinds of different, there's all sorts of different conspiracy theories that are, kind of versions of that, right? Somebody is secretly in control of the world, and we don't really know who it is, right? But again, these conspiracy theories often have no evidence associated with them. But again, people will say, well, of course not, because these people are very careful. Or if anyone knew, they would never be able to get away with it. So the fact that there's no evidence for conspiracy theorists is actually proof that they're right. Of course there's no evidence because we're right. If there was evidence, it could never happen. So you get sort of stuck in this circular logic, right, where you can't prove or disprove anything because there's no evidence to say that they're right, and the fact that there is no evidence, they just feel that proves them right. And so there's kind of no way out of that argument, right? Now, can we compare these people to the British people in the film or to V?
No.
They're definitely not as cool as V, but why can't we compare them? Well, we can compare them, but I think what you're saying is they're not the same. Why are they not the same?
Because what the government did in the movie and this is really different.
Okay, give me a little bit more there. What the government did in the movie and what this is way different. How's it different?
The government killed people in the movie.
Yeah.
This is not true.
Okay, so the government was responsible for the deaths of many, many people in the movie. Here, Canadian government is not, right? What else can we say? Although a lot of people have died of COVID, but what else can we say about these two groups of people?
Inside the movie, they don't have any kind of misinformation, misunderstanding from the main target of the people fighting for. They're all seeking for the freedoms to rebel the government, right?
Right?
But inside the protest of Ottawa, what I see is there have people that don't trust modern science, modern societies, their own government,
Yeah.
and it doesn't even matter of what the government did. It just they do what they should, and that the people of I won't say they're dumb, but getting misinformations.
Yeah?
There's not trusting the government and thinks they are they're right and
Yeah.
they know everything.
Yeah?
Therefore, it's extremely different from British because in some movie, everyone's know what's happening, but in protest, I don't see people knowing what they're doing. Some
Right.
of them are just walking out there because it's what people's doing, making
Right.
videos.
Right. If I agree with you, but if I can complicate it a little bit more, part of what's going on here in Ottawa is that these people don't trust the government, right? They don't trust the information that they're getting from the government. But that's also true of V for Vendetta, right? Many people watch the news, they know that it's coming from the government, and they don't trust it either, right? Remember there was that scene, I think it was yesterday, where things were getting a little chaotic and Adam Sutler was like, we have to be on every television, we have to be everywhere reminding people why they need us, right? And then on every television it was like, oh, another viral outbreak. There's droughts and floods and natural disasters, and people were watching the TV and they're like, do you believe this crap, right? And nobody was really buying it anymore. So I agree with what you said, Kenny, 100%. But it's also interesting that both groups actually are having trouble believing what the government is telling them, right? And again, the governments are not the same, as Avi pointed out, but both of them have a mistrust of government information, for sure. What else? Are these people comparable or not?
Well, I mean, nowadays we have like a big internet.
Yeah.
You can search everything by yourself.
Yeah.
But inside a movie, I don't, because I'm absent, I don't remember much details about it.
Uh-huh.
But I watched it before, and I think the government blocked every kind of information outside from the countries.
Right.
So they can't get any other things to compare with their own information.
Right.
But now we can, and as we can see, COVID is not only happening in Canada.
True.
Like Delta, Omicron is not only happening in Canada. It's happening all around the world. They have no governments and no people have like this much powers to just control the world by themselves.
Right. So yeah, and we often see that in authoritarian states as well, is that they keep a very tight control on information, right? We see it a little bit in Russia. We see it in China a little bit. We definitely see it in North Korea, right? North Korea's basically got a firewall around the whole country, and they can't search anything outside of what the government provides them with. But yeah, we're currently living in a society that is open information, right? Everything is out there for you to search and to read, right? And we know we have other sources of information outside of the government. We know other things that are going on, right? So yeah, there's a big difference there. What about the role of the media? Lots of people. This didn't come up in the video here, but lots of people at the protest were hostile towards the media. They felt that there was signs that said the media is the virus. Some journalists were kind of made to feel unsafe. People were yelling at them and harassing them. What do you think about that? Why do you think people were harassing the media?
Because they think they only show information they don't know what to.
Yeah, they're kind of, they feel, here's a fancy word for you too, they feel that the media is complicit, right? That they're helping the government. And in V for Vendetta, that of course is exactly what's happening, right? The government has taken control of British television, and they're a propaganda machine for the government itself. But does that feel like it describes Canadian media? No, right? The government is not really in control of the media. They can write whatever they want. And you can see lots of, you can find lots of articles that are very critical of the government, right? And that's a bit of a, that shows you something as well, right? And if I can throw this in here at the moment, one of the things that these convoy people were fighting for was freedom, right? They wanted, they wanted their freedom back. But I ask you, in the world of V for Vendetta, before V did the things he did, would a convoy have been able to do what they did in Ottawa? Would they have been able to do that in Adam Sutler's Britain? What do you think would have happened? They probably all would have been arrested, right? They would have been rapidly arrested or killed or black bagged, and that would have been it, right? The very fact that people had the freedom to drive all the way across the country and park their trucks in front of Parliament and then protest is kind of a sign of freedom, isn't it? Yeah, like the whole fact that they were able to do that is evidence of freedom. In an authoritarian state, you don't do that, right? Unless you like jail or death, right? In which case, go ahead, but you can't do that in an authoritarian state, but they did, right? So what do you think? Do you think this is a legitimate cause for these people? Do you think that they're, should we, we said in the movie that we kind of see V as a hero, even though he's a terrorist. We kind of see him as a hero. We definitely see the British people as heroes of their own story, right? Finally standing up to this authoritarian government. But can we see these people as heroes of a story in any way? Anna, why not?
I don't know. It's really nonsense.
It's just nonsense. I guess, right? Their values are good, right? Freedom is a good thing to protest for, right? We definitely don't want a government that controls everything, right? Government overreach. We definitely don't want that. But their ideas are kind of built on faulty information, right? The things that the thing that inform their beliefs the premises, if you will, of their arguments, they're not true, right? And so they don't really have great arguments to make, right? They're worried about, they're worried about the global economic, the World Economic Forum taking over Canada. There's no real evidence that's happening. They're worried about some sort of social credit system. Is there any evidence of that? No. I had heard China is kind of putting a few things into place. I don't know about that, but in Canada, there's no way for that to happen. Nobody's talking about it. Nobody's really interested in it, right? The idea about vaccines being unsafe, I don't know what you think, but I think we've demonstrated that they are safe, and they're much safer than getting COVID, as millions of people have died, right? And so, yeah, their argument, their values are kind of built on false beliefs, right, or false premises. And so they're out there. Do you think that they feel like they're heroes of their story? Not sure or sure? Sure? Yeah, I think they do, right? I think that they do feel that they're doing something heroic, right? But again, and Avi, I think it was you who pointed this out earlier, that's kind of the difference between how we see terrorists and freedom fighters, right? Is that are their ideas any good, right? And freedom is a good idea, I think, right? And justice is a good idea. And protecting ourselves from a government who might try to control us too much, that seems like a good idea too. But again, just like a good argument, you need those beliefs to be built on factual foundations, right? And I think if we dug into this, we would find that actually it's false, right? Their beliefs are based on things that are not true. And so again, it kind of underscores, I think, the importance of critical thinking, because these people are out there and they were risking a lot, right? Some of those people are going to go to jail, right? Because they've been in court for mischief and for, I forget the charge, coaxing people to disobey a court order and all kinds of things. There's people who are going to get a criminal record out of this. They're going to go to jail. There's people who are going to have their trucking license suspended, so they won't be able to drive a big truck anymore. There's people who are not going to be able to get insurance for their trucks either, and so they're going to have to find another job because they can't drive a truck in Canada anymore. And so these people put their lives on the line. Some of these people brought their children to the protest and put their children in harm's way. That's worth paying attention to, right? Because you would think that the last thing any parent would do would be to put their child in a place of harm, right? Most parents, that's the last thing that they would ever do. And here we have people actually doing that because they have beliefs and they think that they're fighting this heroic fight, but it's nonsense. Right? It's based on information that's not correct, right? That's not factual. And so, for me, I don't know what you think, but for me, that really drives home the importance of being able to figure out what's good information and what's bad, right? Because if you can't figure it out, like some of those people, you're going to make some bad choices, right? You're going to risk you're going to be, putting all of your chips on the betting table. You're putting all of your chips onto a hand that you can't win, right? Because you don't know, you don't even know what game you're playing, right? You've got bad information. And again, these people, no kids got hurt as far as I know, which is really great. But can you imagine how awful it would be if one of those kids were injured or even killed by accident? God, that would have been awful, right? And what's happening to some of these people is awful too. They're going to have a criminal record. They're going to go to jail. They're going to lose their livelihood, their ability to drive a truck. And, because they were taking actions based on information that was wrong, right? And beliefs that didn't really have any support, right? There's no reason to believe that vaccines are harmful. There's no reason to believe that the World Economic Forum is going to control Canada. There's no reason to believe that, you know, there's a social credit system coming and we're all going to be judged as to how we, if we agree with the government or not. Trudeau's a bozo. There, I said it on YouTube. Watch what happens to me, right? So, sorry, Justin, you're not a bozo. I don't agree with everything you do, but just in case he's watching. So he might be. I have well over 50 subscribers, so don't laugh.
Amazing.
Well, I know, right? I'm just going like I'm blowing up right now.
Yeah.
I'm huge.
You're the next Mr. Biz.
I know. You just watch. So, yeah, I think this is a big deal, right? And again, a lot of people kind of rolled their eyes at this convoy. A lot of people thought this is nonsense, right? And you're right. You know, it is. But I think there's also something worth paying attention to here. And I think what's worth paying attention to for me is the idea that there are people who cannot tell good information from bad, right? They can't tell good beliefs that are well supported with evidence, from ones that aren't, right? And again, not only are they believing things that are not true or very questionable, but they're willing to put their lives on the line for it, right? They believe it so strongly that they will risk everything, right? Their livelihood, their freedom, right? They might wind up in jail. The welfare of their children. That's a big risk, right? And I think, you know, it's important to pay attention when people are willing to bet it all on an idea like that, right? Because, yeah, I don't think you wouldn't call that terrorism, would you? No, I don't think so either. Did they have a political agenda? They did, right? They wanted the government to do certain things, and some of them even actually wanted to basically overthrow the government, right? I think I showed you in class a couple weeks ago, they had written a document, right, saying that they wanted to replace the current government. That's an overthrow, but it wasn't really, they didn't really use terror, they didn't really use violence, so it's not terrorism, but is it worth paying attention to? I really think it is, right? And especially in the context of movies like V for Vendetta, because we saw that movie, right? And we identified V as the hero, did we not? Yeah, V was the hero. Evie was the hero. The British people were the hero. And the government was the enemy, were they not? Yeah. And so we kind of understood that, but these people are thinking the same thing when they see that movie, right? They're seeing, yeah, the people are the hero, the government is the enemy, right? But the difference, of course, is that in the film, we actually have a government that is, you know, controlling, and a government that has committed crimes, a government that is controlling the media, a government that is, you know, using a fascist government, right, that's using violence against its citizens. Here in Canada, we don't really have that, right? But some people can't tell the difference, right? And I think that's a problem, even though it was nonsense, but also not, right? It was also a scary thing. Okay, that's all I have for you. So pack it up. Tomorrow we have a quiz, don't forget. Classes 19 to 26 is what we'll do, okay? And we'll start the quiz here for the people who are in-person students. We'll start at 11, okay? Because I do have a few people to deal with online, and so I will need some time to deal with them, okay? So we'll start the quiz at 11 if you're an in-person student. If you're an online student, I'll start with you at 10:05, okay? So we'll see you all tomorrow. Have a nice afternoon. Do not commit any acts of terrorism. please. Even though I basically told you how, don't do it.